Welcome to another week of Have Serious. Guys, we're coming up on recording our 50th episode. I've got some interviews and stuff like that scheduled, but I kind of want to make it a little bit special, but I don't know exactly what to do yet. So if you guys have any ideas or want a particular episode with a particular guest that I could have on to ask some questions, then by all means, shoot me an email or shoot me a message on any of the platforms, and I will see if I can make that happen. But for today, we're talking to Katherine Boyle. I actually contacted her because I saw her platform and what she was doing, and I have always got mad respect for somebody that sees a problem and isn't just like, oh, okay, well, that'll get solved someday. She actually took the initiative to try to solve the problem and do what she could, which is just helping officers have healthier home lives. She was not an officer, is not an officer. I don't think she ever wants to be an officer, but she is the daughter of an officer, and she had a healthy childhood. I say that like it's surprising, but I think because the schedules and everything that everybody deals with, usually there's, I don't want to say fracturing, but some difficult schedules and some difficult times after so many years can sometimes superimpose into their lives. We could protect them as much as we want to, but, there's some bleed over at some point. I don't know why, but it continually surprises me when somebody that isn't involved in policing or first responder stuff still wants to stand up for them and try to understand it and actually be the communicator between the two parties, so to speak, between civilians that just hate cops or don't understand them and police officers in general. And so maybe some of you guys that have kids out there that are listening to this, take what you can from the conversation. Hopefully gives you some ideas and some ways to maybe invest your time and to measure the importance of what you're doing. We got to measure those sacrifices, right? How much time are we going to spend away from home to earn the extra buck? So she kind of speaks on that and a bunch of other things. We, as always, go a whole bunch of twists and turns because I just tend to ask what pops up in my head. But without going too much into it, I will shut up. Here's Katherine. Why has building a healthier environment for law enforcement been such a passion for you?
Yeah, it kind of came out of left field. It was not something that I really anticipated doing. My dad is retired law enforcement. He was a Philadelphia police officer. And so growing up, I always just had an affinity towards law enforcement because to me, they embodied a parental figure. Because in addition to my dad, my uncles were all cops. A lot of my older cousins were also cops. So that's just kind of like how my brain associated cops.
Family of cops.
Yeah, it was the family business for a while.
Man.
And so that's just how I thought of them. That's how I looked at them. That's how I viewed the profession, and also never really thought anything else of it. And as I got older, my professional background is actually in fashion. And as I got older, I was like, I want to do something like for cops or in support of cops. I didn't know what that could look like. So I would be like Googling, how can I support cops? And I don't know, like nonprofits would come up and donate here and donate there. And I never really kind of figured it out. So I was just like, all right, put it on the back burner. Don't worry about it. So fast forward years later, 2020 rolls around. And again, I'm working in fashion. I also worked in fitness. I lived in New York City, and there was a lot of chatter in my circle, and a lot of people were kind of challenging me on the fact that I had cops in my family, and it was bizarre and strange.
What do you mean challenging you?
Like, how could you ever support law enforcement when this is what's happening? And, demanding that I explain what was happening and explain why. One story that I always tell, because I think it just kind of like describes what was happening in my circle, was like one guy sent me a video of a cop post-riot. Like after curfew, he was out, cops telling him to go home. He's recording the cop instead. Cop starts raising his voice. He sends me the video and he's like, why does he have to talk to me like that? And I'm like, come on. Are we really going to split hairs here.
Mhm.
But that was also like the experience that made me realize that I saw cops in a different light than maybe some of my peers. I did have this background that they embodied
Yeah.
a parental figure. And so I recognized that as a civilian, I saw a different side of them. And I was concerned with the human side. I was concerned with the side of them that was gonna go home and put dinner on the table or, like, tuck their kids into bed, and I didn't understand how the 2 things could be happening at the same time. Because like, in 2020, they were literally being treated like animals, I'm sure
Yeah.
you know, and I was thinking, like, they're supposed to go home and take care of their little children and
Mhm.
their young adult children, whatever, um and so that's how I was like, "Okay, well, I'm a civilian. Civilians are not supporting cops right now, so I'm gonna kind of take that on and let them know that we are still out there and we do still love and appreciate the sacrifices that they make. Don't know what that's gonna look like."
Uh, that must have been a hard jump off because 'cause I'd be worried too.
Yeah, yeah, it was a tough time too, like,
Yeah.
of all times when I decided to speak up, and
Like,
so
today's the day. I'm gonna
today's
make it
the
the most
day,
difficult.
yeah. It was but it really was, like, they say, like, the fire that I needed, I guess, and I was
Oh,
like, "I don't
good.
know what this is gonna look like, but I'm gonna figure it out," and that's what the past, couple of years have been, is figuring it out, how I was gonna support them, and that's how it kind of fell into my lap and how I ended up here.
Kind of feel like you figured it out. I feel like you've got a really strong base and like a really good narrative and voice and opinion on things. And you can, relate like a lot of civilians can't. And I'm not like bad mouthing civilians by all means.
Mhm.
Like part of me wishes that I did just have that side of view for a lot of stuff, but you are walking that line in such a unique way. It's a good perspective to have. And I don't think a lot of cops hear cops' kids talk, so it's good for them to hear that too. So I'm glad. Yeah, I was so happy that when I found, I was like, "Oh, this is a cool platform to have." So
Thanks. Oh, thanks,
very
that's
much
so
so
nice.
appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. And it's also, I will say, to your point, it's definitely like an interesting line to walk
Mhm.
because I'm not e even remotely, like, connected to the profession in a professional sense. Like, I could never be a cop. I don't want to be a cop. All, like, respect, but I couldn't
Yeah.
do it myself. So I'm very much a civilian with, like, this intimate view into, like, a side of them that civilians don't typically see,
Yeah.
and so it's really cool and it's really special when dealing with law enforcement, obviously, of course, but
Mhm.
it's also really cool when dealing with civilians who sometimes don't support law enforcement. Like, I have been given the opportunity to share with people who don't support law enforcement and who don't like law enforcement, and because of, like, the angle that I'm coming at and the experience that I have, they're, like,
Mhm.
open to listening to me, and it's been really, really cool to be able to
Yeah.
sort of bridge that gap in some people and their experiences.
Have you seen that like switch in civilians when you've talked to them, and then it kind of be like, "Oh, I totally get that now," or has it just been more of a gradual changeover with talking with them?
There's been so many times where it's been a switch, and it's
Okay.
crazy.
Sorry, there's a bug flying in here. Don't know where the
It's
hell
that
that
time of
came from.
year.
Yeah.
It's been really crazy to see, and, like, I'm not saying the switch was now they're, sporting their thin blue line
Yeah.
flags, but the switch is, like, I never thought about that. I never thought about what they see every day. I never thought about what they're coming off of, or
Mhm.
what's going on at home, or what they're going through personally, or and a lot of people, like, it's not even necessarily their fault. It's like, what does your average civilian experience law enforcement for? Because they got into a
Yeah.
car accident one time,
Mhm.
or they got in trouble they got pulled over one time. Like, they don't really have insight into what they're seeing and doing on a regular basis. Like, and this is a tangent that I go off on sometimes, the average
There you go.
civilian also doesn't understand the justice system at all. So, like, they don't know everything that law enforcement actually does, can do, can't do, has say in, doesn't have say in, is exposed to, isn't exposed to. I was talking to one girl, she didn't even know that cops showed up at 9/11. Like, she didn't realize that they were first responders. So, like, eh, and that's a very extreme example, but
Yeah.
but yeah, and you know, I get frustrated sometimes because I'm like, how do you not get out of your bubble and think about these things?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if they're willing to listen to me and have those aha moments, then like let's go.
Yeah. It's like you have to be patient enough to be like, okay, you're willing to talk about this, so we're
Right.
gonna do it. But
Right, you're listening to me, so
yeah.
I'm gonna take a breath and we're gonna talk about it, but also in the back of my mind I'm like, come
Yeah.
on.
Your own emotions, you're like, no, quell, don't.
Literally, turn
Yeah.
off the true crime
Yeah.
podcast and, like, read a book.
Yeah, exactly. That's as a supervisor, I'd have to talk people down with, civilians, and I just when they call, I just say, they'd be so mad at the way an officer taught or talk to them on a wreck or something. It's like, hey, listen, they literally just came from this mom that committed suicide while her kids were standing in front of her, and then he came to your wreck. Like, I'm
Right.
sorry, his emotions were high. Of course, I wouldn't give them all the story. I just, say
Right,
something along
right.
those lines. But typically, they were a lot better after that. But then there's those some like, no, fuck it, they should still be really nice to me. And it's like, I get it, like they should, but like,
Yeah,
there's
like, in a
emotions.
perfect world, if they were robots, sure, there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
shoulda, coulda, wouldas, but, like, in a world where there's a lot of nuance and you're asking human beings to do a job that, like, literally
Yeah.
no human being was designed to do emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
mentally, physically, or otherwise, like, what do you want from us? From
Yeah.
them?
Do you want them human or what are we
Right,
doing?
right, exactly.
Was there a moment when I'm guessing I don't know your age when he was a cop. So that's what from like when you were born on, or I guess from when you're cognizant of what he was doing. Pretty young age. Then he was a cop on, or
Yeah, he was already a cop when I was born, and
okay,
then he retired, he retired when I was, like, in my right out of college, maybe?
okay. So was there a time when he came home when you were a kid, when you're cognizant of what he was doing, where you were like, oh, something's changed or something big has happened? Were you picking up on that stuff?
No, I
Really?
never I never
Wow, that's
really,
actually
like
refreshing.
yeah, and you know what? That's what people say. Sometimes I
Yeah,
feel bad almost saying that because I feel very blessed that that is my experience, but
yeah,
also, like, I know that I've come to learn that that's not a lot of people's experience or that's not
mm-hmm.
everyone's experience. But I didn't really think about or know much about what he did. Like, I knew that he was on the news sometimes and that he worked a different schedule and that people would come to our house if they were in trouble, like the neighbors or whatever. He was the go-to guy. Like, I knew
Yeah,
these little things. I knew he had a gun. Um but his job was not really a central focus at all,
that's
and
crazy.
so it never really played a role in my life until I got old enough to kind of understand it more, and I remember when I was in 8th grade, he
Mm-hmm.
was working a case that it was a kidnapping case, so it was a little less, like, icky or,
Yeah.
like, traumatic for a kid to learn about, and, it was also super high profile, so it was, like, everywhere, we couldn't escape it, so
Mm.
that's when I remember really sort of starting to put the pieces together and understanding more about what he did and sort of being more exposed to the job was when I was in 8th grade.
So did you just realize what he was doing, or you could kind of tell when his emotions were ebb and flowing, or is he just good at keeping that all separate?
No, the emotions he was good about keeping
Wow.
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just more like that was a case that within reason he could kind
Mm-hmm.
of share with
Oh,
us or
okay.
talk about what was going on or he could just be a little bit more open because the detail like the information wasn't graphic.
At some point, did you realize that other families weren't as healthy with that relationship with their kids and stuff as you were, and so you wanted, is this like a thing that you started because of that, or what changed it? Was it the friend, like you were talking about the civilians, that you didn't realize how many people hated the cops and didn't understand, or was it the family thing, or what did that come into play? Because I know that you speak on that quite a bit. So when did that start becoming a focus as well?
Yeah, so it was post 2020, post all that. It
Uh-huh.
like I never again, his job like was not an element, so I never really thought much about it. I always appreciated the way we were raised. I always appreciated my family dynamic. We always like sat down for a
Mhm.
meal, whether it was breakfast or dinner or what have you. We always like did things together, and I remember even as like a young person, and I've told this before, but I think it really kind of pinpoints what I'm trying to say when it comes to I appreciate how I grew up is, when I was young, I always said, like, "I'm not gonna get married and have kids unless I'm in a position to do it the way my parents did it."
Oh,
Because
wow.
for their time, they waited, they're baby boomers. They dated
Mhm.
for 5 years. They waited until they were in their 30s to get married, in their 30s to have kids, which is not, typical for their
Yeah.
generation. And so that always kinda stood out to me, and, even as a kid, I recognized that, like, my parents were doing something that other parents were not doing because, like, all my friends' parents were divorced or getting divorced or,
Yeah.
had all these different dynamics that I knew I didn't want. And but and all that said, like, I never thought about his whether or not his job played a role in any of that until fast forward 2020 happens. I need to figure it out because I'm a civilian and I want them to know that I support them, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. And I start talking to cops because I'm like, I don't know what some 30 something year old girl with a degree in fashion can do to support you. So, like, let's talk about it. And what kept coming up was my relationship with my dad and how close we are and how fondly I speak of him, I guess, and that's when that flip switched for me where I was like,
Mm.
"Whoa, this is not everybody's experience. What are you talking about?" And, like,
Yeah.
the people I was talking to, some of them had, like, already kind of acknowledged and understood that they were having troubles with their kids or whatever, but some of them were, like, having these revelations on this call. "Oh my god, what have I done?" And
Mhm.
it was really jarring for both of us sometimes, but that was really what kind of catapulted that element where it was like, "Okay, I need to talk about our experience, what our
Mhm.
experience could be, what it is, like, what we're going through." Um and how to kind of connect because if I didn't have that relationship with my parents, with my dad, like I don't know what my life would look like. And so if this isn't the norm, we got to make this the norm. So how can I figure out how to do that? And that's kind of how I got into this arena.
And that is a huge compliment to your parents. I mean, if me as a parent, if my kid was like, "I want a parent just like I'd be like, "Thanks. Oh my god." Like,
Yeah.
that is so, I'm sure, yeah, that's an awesome compliment to your parents, so it's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, where do you hope that this eventually goes? And usually it's something asked to the end, but I'm curious now. Where do you hope that this, if you had the epitome of where you hope that it reaches, where is that?
Mm. I mean, like big picture, if we're thinking
Yeah.
like real big, I mean, one of the things that I talk about that I really want to do is, and this is kind of like very general speaking,
Mhm.
but I really want to change the narrative of what it means to be a cop who has a family. I want to change that narrative and set a higher standard because like the fact is the stereotype is not attractive. The stereotype
Mm.
is what? Like what do you think when you hear a cop who's married? How many times has he been married? How many
Mhm.
you know, side pieces does he have? How many
Yep.
divorces? How many kids don't talk to him?
Mhm.
Like, how much does he drink a day? Like, all of these cliches come up for so many people, and I'm talking on both sides of the fence, civilians and also first responders. First responders are sometimes even like quicker to jump
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the assumptions. Like, Um, I can't tell you how often the response is if someone learns that, my dad is a cop. Again, this is first responders and non. Like, how often did you get beat as a child? Or like, things of that nature. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that cannot be our go-to. We
Yeah.
we got to start thinking like, oh, you hear my dad is a cop, immediately you think you had the best dad in the world because
Mhm.
I know firsthand, first experience that it's possible because I did and he was a cop. So I
Yeah.
think that's like very just like that's not super solid where I wanted to go, but that's really
Yeah.
what I want to do. And I guess the way I want to get there is to continue speaking on my experience, what is possible, how you can, have an epic career, have a great career in law enforcement, and also be there
Mhm.
for your family, raise your children, be the go-to in your household, be one of the two go-tos in your household. Um, Trainings, I'd love to be able to start talking or offering my course at academy level because I think we're really setting these young people up for failure.
Yeah.
My dad was 31 when he became a cop, so I think that had a lot to do with it. I think in a lot of ways when you're 31, you just have your ish together a little bit more
Yeah.
than a 21-year-old, 22-year-old who is, the
Yeah. Just
average age.
happy to have a gun in a car and like, ooh.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, me at 21, I was literally a baby. Like, what
Yeah.
are we
Yeah.
talking about 21-year-olds
No.
becoming cops?
Mm-mm.
So, I'd love to be able to talk to cadets and academy graduates to prepare them. Most of them don't have families. It's not even on their radar.
Mm.
But they need to know that like the job is going to play a role in who they're becoming and it might not be the easiest transition if they start to bring a family into the equation and how they can kind of mitigate that. So
Mhm.
those are some of the things that I want to continue doing and hopefully it just grows and expands so that we can change that narrative.
Yes, please. Do you think that it's the personality that attracts the job or the job that attracts the personality? Do you think that people change once they get here or that they were already that way and then they kind of get into the career and so now they need to learn how to react when it's their home life versus policing? If you're kind of getting what I'm saying. That was a really convoluted way for me to say that, but
No,
um
it's okay. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think it's a combination to answer your
mhm.
question, but I think more specifically, if you think about it, we're hiring these 21, 22-year-olds who don't understand exactly what this job entails. They don't necessarily know what they're getting themselves into. They don't really understand life. Like, let's just be honest. We were all
But they
21 at one
think they
point,
do.
and yes, um, you know, their brains, science tells us that their brains are not fully developed.
Mhm.
And so they're getting on the job as these young people. And then the beginning of their career, they're like being thrown into this profession and exposed to all of these things
Yeah.
before their brains are fully developed. And then, forget about the other stuff like how they're coping, what admin's doing, what politics are
Mhm.
doing.
Mm.
All of this is happening. And they're kind of, with all of this happening, they're becoming who they're going to be because they're under 25 years old. So they're not
Yeah.
quite fully developed. And so now they're developing into that person with all of this other stuff going on. So I think it's like a culmination of all of it. And then they grow as that person in the profession, with the profession being priority because that's what they teach you and that's what needs to
Yeah.
happen. And that's what the cool kids do. And it's a cool job. And we want to be running and gunning and all of these things. And we're young, mostly men. And
Mhm.
then, you know, fast forward 5 or 10 years and they want to bring a family into the mix. And I think that that's when um, things can sort of start to get a little bit confusing and they can sort of start to realize, like, I'm not equipped for
Yeah.
this because nobody equipped me for it.
Yeah. I don't I think that some of the guys get exposed to all the bad shit, and then they have kids and it's wonderful, but then they don't know, they compartmentalize to such a degree that it destroys kind of who they are, because then they're faking it at home and then they're faking it at work, and then it just becomes this, two different people that isn't even really them. I've never actually witnessed any abuse with cops at all. And we were when I was in, it was a fairly big department, but I have seen a lot of drinking, a lot of suicidal thoughts, a lot of working part times all the damn time just because they're trying to earn money for some baseball stuff that they're never even going to be able to attend because they're having to work part times to pay for it. So these guys that are doing this stuff, what's something that you would tell them, or what's the advice that you would give them that aren't following through with maybe seeing their kids as much as they should, or trying to figure out what the right steps are to be the parent that they want to be?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up too, because I don't know a lot of cops either that have abused their children or the people in their
Yeah.
home. So like, again, the fact that that is the narrative and that is kind of the go-to assumption is really bizarre to me, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it's really not that common. It's not like
No.
what you hear about, what you see in movies. Like, it's, in my experience, that's not the reality. So the fact that that is the assumption is kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's something that I get a lot too, is like, well, I don't drink, so everything is fine on my end. My kids don't act out in school, but like Joe Schmoes do, so like I'm in a better spot than Joe Schmo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, sure, maybe, but like we're not here to compare. Um,
Yep.
and I think the biggest thing is when it comes to kids, especially younger kids and even teenagers, th all they need, and I'm talking like biologically, is your presence, is a connection with you, is to understand you on some sort of level, is to be able to see
Yeah.
you and know you. So don't underwrite the small things. Like, can you skip that overtime shift to
Mm-hmm.
take them to the park or to throw the ball around with them? Maybe you can't go to their game, but can you practice with them for an afternoon? Can you take them out for ice cream if you only have 10 minutes? Like, small little moments really are what add up over time, and those are the little pieces that make up their childhood. If all you're doing is picking up overtime so that you can afford the best of the best baseball equipment, I mean, great, they've got the best of the best baseball equipment, but they also don't have any memories with their father or their mother. And
Yeah.
when they get older and they want to look back on their life or they want to share with their kids, that's what they're going to wish they had. Not
Yeah.
not the coolest baseball mitt or whatever.
Is there something that you found that admin could maybe adjust or change to kind of help facilitate this better family relationship?
I think one thing is leading by example would be a great place to start.
Whoa, whoa,
Um,
whoa, whoa. You're asking for a lot here,
I
okay?
know, I'm coming out the gates.
Whoa.
Um, but I've heard a lot of really incredible experiences with admin. I've heard the other side too. But,
Mhm.
there are admin people out there who say, yes, we're short staffed, but no, we don't need you because today's your day off and you had plans with your family. So
Mhm.
go. Or like something happens and they call and they say, "You want me to come in?" And command staff will be like, "No, do what you're doing." Or just generally encouraging focusing on your family or offering help, offering support. I have a friend whose husband is a chief where they are, and
Mhm.
he's constantly checking on his people, constantly checking on his people and making sure they're okay. And if he suspects there's a depression problem, a drinking problem, a home problem, whatever, he
Yeah.
will seek out resources and offer them. And I mean, at that point, then it's on them to kind of take it and run
Yeah.
with it. But like, he's doing everything he can to be there for his people to the best of his ability. And I think that that really just goes a long way because then they know that they're supported. They can feel confident in their decisions to not pick up that overtime shift that they maybe feel pressured to pick up, or actually taking their day off because they want to spend it with their family. So yeah, I think that those would all be great places to start.
I think we have a lot that reach that, but there's very few that I've found that truly practice it. So
Mhm.
if you know some departments you want to name drop, I know a lot of people would be like, I'll sign up there. Because I mean, I know that that's got to help with retention and stuff too. It's just for some reason it's a hard point to get across, and a lot of people, admin, don't want to do it that I've found. But
Mhm.
I see either they're extreme, they're in it and they're committed and they have good retention, or they talk a game and they don't follow through. And I would love it if everybody would actually follow through with it. Would be awesome.
And I think too, like, especially with retention, that's getting tougher with
Mm,
this newer generation. And you've probably seen this, but this newer generation, from what I'm seeing and understanding, is like they want to be with their families. And
yeah.
so
Foreign
they're
concept. What is that? It's
right.
like, what?
Hello. What's going on here? And even if they don't have families, they want to do their own thing. They want to have their own
Mm
friends. They want to be in a pickleball league. They want to have their own life outside the job.
hmm. Mm
And
hmm.
they see the risks, the risk factors, sort of the old-fashioned way of doing things or whatever, is working against departments in a lot of ways. And like,
Mm hmm.
to the degree where it repulses people, and that's making retention so much worse. And I think that that's why we're seeing like this, people are in for 5 years, 7 years, and then they're out because they're like, I want to do this job, but you're setting me up for failure. You're setting me up to
Yep.
live a miserable life, have a horrible home life, retire in 25 years, and then die shortly thereafter or
Mm hmm.
whatever. And that's not what I want for myself. So instead of being able to navigate it, because there's no one to turn to, there's no one teaching them how to navigate it, they're just out. They're like, I'm going to go find a different job because this isn't worth it. And I think if we just, admin and departments, just took a look at that and was like, okay, the
Mm
tides are a changing here. We have to do something
hmm.
about this. Let's keep these people because they genuinely want to work this job. Let's keep them and teach them how they can work the job and also be present at home and work with them in ways where, okay, maybe some people genuinely can't come in or don't want to come in, and they shouldn't always have to come in. How can we kind of make this a teamwork effort where we need a shift filled? Okay, you have a spouse and kids and a vacation planned, so maybe you're not going to come in, but you're single and doing your own thing, so maybe you'll come in, and then like we can all kind of work together to fill in these gaps, and it's just a much more synchronistic. And I like, it sounds obviously very white picket fence, but I think
Yeah.
there's something there where we're pushing out these younger cops who genuinely want to do the job but don't want to put up with some of the back end stuff.
Yeah, I concur 100%. The younger, eh, it's almost like they are thrown off when you say, "Well, we need you." They're like, "Well, I'm going kayaking with friends." Like, what? I know, and I would not have said that shit as a rookie cop. Like, "Oh, okay, okay, I guess I'll be here," you know. And it's a weird, like, they have so much respect for their off time, which I'm somewhat jealous. I wish I had had that respect when
Mhm.
I was that rookie, because that's healthy. But then at the same time, that's where it was hard, is you have these young cops that are invested in their own passion. And then we're like, hey, can you come in though? Because there's somebody married with kids. We don't want to call in. So you don't have any. It's like a weird,
Yeah.
it's hard to balance that stuff. And I don't know what the right answer is, especially with it being everybody being short staffed.
Yep.
But I'm out now. So I guess I'm going to leave that for somebody else to
Yeah.
figure out, I guess.
Not my circus, not my monkeys.
You know, unfortunately, I try my best.
But it
Oh.
is, yeah, it's definitely tough, especially with all the staffing issues. In a perfect world, that is how things would work.
Hmm.
But again, like, it's not going to get any better unless we start kind of working with them and meeting them where they're at. Obviously, like you kind of alluded to, it's maybe going too far
Yeah.
in the other direction. And like that's a bigger problem, a bigger conversation, a generational thing. Um, but but yeah, I mean, we're just going to continue losing them. The problems are going to get worse unless
Mhm.
the admin side, the this is how we've always done it kind of thought process bends a little
Mhm.
bit or it's going to break.
Um, a f kind of a left field question, but I wanted to ask you because I know you've covered this topic before, and it's I don't wanna say it's touchy with me, but I live in a military-centric town, um, but we're a very big city, so we do have a large police department stuff, but, uh, what's your take on military and cops? Because I feel like we sister them up all the time. "Oh my god, this bug is not leaving me alone right now." I have a clean house, just for the record.
It's just the time of year. I
It's
get it. It's
it's
okay.
just this one bug that's like, "Yo, let me get it on this podcast. I got some shit to say." It's but, uh, military and cops, and I feel like sometimes they're lumped together in the worst of ways and the best of ways, and then other times with the respect issue, I feel like it is completely different sides. Yeah, I'm gonna tell a story. It's a bone to pick, but, like, I was fighting some chick and she had tried to stab me with a little Swiss knife. And then, like, I remember just ramming her head into the side of a pole. And it was right beside, like, where all the military go in to their area. And there was 5 or 6 people in full uniform just driving by looking at me fighting this chick alone. She's a big chick. And they're just like, going to work. And the only people that helped are the cops that pulled up and they grab her and then it's on. But I'm just like, I'm tired of this. Like, everybody's, oh, respect the military, which we should. Got plenty of people in the military. Respect the military, immediately give them respect, not knowing what they're doing, and then cops get spit on half the time, and it's like, damn. So I feel like there's so much respect to be had in the military, and there's respect to be had in the policing world, but I feel like it's completely different.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yes. I have a lot of thoughts on this. Again, I think because of this position that I'm in as a civilian, and I grew up in a law enforcement home, and I
Mhm.
grew up like support our military, support our
Yeah.
soldiers, all these things, and of course, like 100%. My husband is an Army veteran. I have the utmost respect for military, and also what you see. Again, very generally speaking, is this notion where it's like we respect our military. We respect what they go out there and do. They're fighting for our freedom. They're, fighting for our lives and all of
Mhm.
these things. And all of that is true and good. But it's like we don't necessarily know what they're doing. We just know that they're fighting a war and
Mhm.
that they're fighting for our freedom. So boom, they get this respect and they are held almost on this pedestal. And when it comes to law enforcement, like I said earlier, people just don't think about what law enforcement does. They don't care to say what are they going out and doing on a regular
Mhm.
basis? What are they exposed to every single day? And there's no sort of empathy or respect granted for law enforcement and for what they do to keep people safe on a regular basis. And there's obviously like the people that hate the police blanket statement,
Mhm.
but I mean, them aside, even people who are just like very neutral, they will be quick to support military, but they won't even think about what law enforcement is doing every single day. And I don't really understand why. Again, this is why I was like earlier, it sort of frustrates me because people don't put in that forethought for what cops are exposed to every day. And you see a veteran wearing a hat or with a sticker on their car or whatever, and it's like, "Thank you for your
Mhm.
service. I don't know you from Adam, but I'm gonna go out of my way to say thank you for your service." You
Yeah.
see a cop and "F that pig." Like, what's going on? I don't understand. And I think what's really interesting is, again, as civilians, it's almost like we don't even wanna think about what military goes through because war is terrifying, point blank. War is a terrifying concept. It's a terrifying thing to go out and do, And also, it's historically right now, like, it's over there, and it's not really in your immediate circle. So it's this, like, foreign
Mm-hmm.
concept almost where they're going overseas to a land that I'm never gonna go to. I can't even imagine what life is like over there, and so whatever is happening here deserves my respect. But then
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side of the coin, it's like your neighbor is a cop and he is seeing his neighbors or her neighbors going through horrific things, dying or being abused on a regular basis, or going and trying to save the neighbor down the block from a house fire or a drowning situation. Like, they're experiencing all these things in their own backyards, and we, like, couldn't care less almost. I don't understand it at all, and I find it quite frustrating personally.
I love the military. My family's military,
Mhm.
friends military, all this other stuff. I just don't understand the disconnect between, like, I know a lot of military that did paperwork the whole time, which is all in good. It served the greater good of the military, but I don't know a single cop that hasn't seen a dead body, at least not in our
Right.
town. Multiple, you know what I mean? I don't. So and the disadvantages. It's like, okay, well, if the police are like the military, and that's how we're going to see them in some aspects, like where
Mhm.
you think that the cops are military when it comes to use of force, which is completely different, then let's give them the same benefits, you know? I didn't know if you had ever kind of approached that topic in any of your stuff, because I know we have a ton of ex-military that become cops because again, it's
Mhm.
kind of similar. Just I think it's because they're outlier jobs, but
Yeah.
is that a topic that you have to approach a lot?
It's something that I have addressed. Usually, like, when it comes to sharing about perception
Hmm.
and how, again, like, from a civilian perspective, we are looking at law enforcement and military very differently.
Hmm.
And so when I speak to law enforcement, sometimes I will share because I think sometimes they need that perspective where they almost
Yeah.
forget how they're being viewed. And when I speak to civilians, I always touch on it because I think it's a good tangible example that I can offer these people. A lot of times it will be how they view the two different parties, and it can sort of help make things click for them where it's like, "Oh yeah, why am I so quick to respect one and not the other, or
Yep.
lend empathy to one and not the other?" So it like kind of paints a good picture when I speak to civilians.
Yeah.
Um and I shared about it on another podcast one time, and it, like, the clip that he shared kind of went viral, and in the comments, it was, like you said, it was a lot of cops who started as military, and they were like, I mean, even my eyes were opened by reading those comments because it was like, I was in the military for however long, never saw nothing, never did nothing, like, whatever,
Hmm.
and then I became a cop and my whole life changed. Or, like, I got traumatized way quicker, way worse when I became a cop, and, um it's not that it's like, it's not a competition, but
Whoa,
it's
we get
just
traumatized so no.
Um, yeah, like, it's not a competition, but I think especially, again, when I talk to civilians, it really helps open their eyes to what
Yeah.
they're overlooking when it comes to the sacrifices that law enforcement really does make, and the fact that they really are the people out there who are keeping us safe. Like, they're not just the people pulling you over or showing up when you got into a car accident. They are
Hmm.
doing things to keep you safe, whether you realize it or not, the same way the military is. Whether it's traumatic or not, like,
Yeah.
that is their job.
What's a topic that you have to talk about in everything that you do that is a difficult topic for you to approach, either emotionally or just the topic in general?
That's a good question. I mean, a lot of what I approach is difficult. I think,
Hmm.
especially because what I'm talking about is your kids. And that can be really touchy. That can be like really scary for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are protective of their kids,
Oh
and
yeah.
they don't want to think that their kids could be hurting, and they really don't want to think that they could be causing hurt for their kids. And I always preface this when I give a talk or a workshop or something. I always preface it like, I'm not giving parenting advice. Like, that is not what I'm here to do. I'm not a parenting expert. I'm here to share what our perspective is and how we view what's happening in the world, whether you realize it or not, as a parent, or as an adult, because as an adult you see things a lot differently than your kids see them. And that in general can be really difficult because
Mm-hmm.
people can be defensive. They can be kind of quick to push kind of some of the stuff that I say away. I think one thing that was scary for a while, or difficult for a while, that I got some pushback on that I actually don't anymore, is that I'm not a cop. And so it's like, well, you don't know what you're talking about because you're not a cop. And that's the whole point.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the
I think
bridge
you're
that.
missing the point here if that
Yeah.
is where your mind is going. But I think like the better I've kind of gotten at sharing my message and putting it out there, I think the more people understand and the clearer it's gotten. But
Mm-hmm.
but in general, just anything that involves people's children can be touchy and it can be a difficult subject. So that in and of itself is difficult, going in there and just saying like, these are the stories I hear, these are my experiences. It can be really triggering for people, so that's always kind of difficult to navigate. Um, but yeah, it's not an easy topic at all. It's really not.
I didn't even think about people just getting mad about you saying that. I mean, not that you would say you're a horrible parent, but in their heads, they'd be like,
Yeah,
maybe I didn't do this right. So she's calling me a bad. It's like, no, no, no.
never. Right, exactly. I
But yeah.
just want to plant seeds, put things in your mind to think about that you might otherwise not think about, because honestly, why
Mm-hmm.
would you? That's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
Do you see a difference between um, a parental figure, the male or female being the cop, the mom or the dad? Do you see any kind of difference in approach or reaction, be it with the kids or your audience that you're teaching?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I mean, obviously it's a male dominated industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I see more men, but in my experience, this isn't maybe the way it always is, but in my experience, the female cops are usually a little bit um more apt to balance all the things and to kind of do all the things and be able to come home and connect with the kids a little bit better. And I don't know if that's just because nurturing maternal instincts,
Yeah.
because we are more emotional creatures. Like, I'm not really sure the science behind it all, or even if what I'm saying is true across the board. But in my experience, it is a little bit more common for the female cops to be able to let down their guard and go home and connect with their kids a little bit more easily, I'll say, not better.
Yeah, I was always curious because I know the roles are completely different. Even though it's the same kind of job, I didn't know if there was a different reaction with male or female mom or dad or whatnot. I'm sure you've
Yeah.
been exposed to enough people and audiences that you're kind of aware of the situation.
Yeah. It is an interesting topic, and I'd be interested to see, like, at a larger scale, in a more like concentrated way, how kind of the different dynamics are. The other thing too is a lot of times it's like a two cop household, and it'll be like almost like the female cop will not take a back seat, but like, I don't really know how to say it, but like, be more at home. Like, it'll be a little bit more understood where
Yeah.
the male in the home will take on a little bit more overtime, or do
Hmm.
an extra detail here or there so that mom can be at the game or whatever. Again, that's just like how it kind of has fallen out in my conversations and in the people that I've talked to. Maybe that's not always the way it is, but like I said, I'd be interested.
I quit the job because I needed more time with my
Yeah,
kids.
and
So,
that's the other thing too. Like I've talked to quite a few, but I've also talked to quite a few men who have done it also, but I've
yep.
talked to more women, and that's not uncommon either, law
Hmm.
enforcement or otherwise. Like my mom, when my parents started having kids, she was like, I'm going to be a working mom. I'm going to do my maternity leave. I'm going to go back to work. She had my
Hmm.
older sister, and she was like, change of plans. I'm never leaving this child. Now all of a sudden I'm a stay-at-home mom. So like I think that like that uh and not to be traditional, but like the
Yeah.
traditional roles kind of take over in some cases, and that's just kind of how they fall.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean,
Sometimes, not all the time.
yeah. Can never use an absolute. Um, I feel like I'm going left with some of these questions, but why do you think that it is cops put so much of themselves into the job as opposed to other professions? Like, why do you think that we need to be told to, I hate to say told to invest in family, but I mean, that's kind of what it is because some people need to be told, like, hey, you need to actually not let this job be your whole life and go be there for your family. Why do you think this is one of those jobs where we need to be told that and reminded that and really taught that at some point, too?
Yeah, it's a big question. It's a big topic. I think part of it is the age thing that we talked about already, where they get in it so young, they become all about the job, and that's sort of the life that they live, and then it's like they have to unlearn or work
Hmm.
backwards, bringing a family into the equation. Um, I think it's a cool job. I think it's a fun job. And so it's an important job also, which is a big piece of the puzzle where it's like you have notoriety, you have a lot of responsibility, you have all these important elements. And so, like, why wouldn't that
Hmm.
kind of get wrapped up in your identity and who
Yeah.
you are and why you do what you do? That's definitely a big piece of the puzzle. I think, hate to say it, but I think ego is plays a huge
Yeah.
role. Just whether it's over time, whether it's just who you are, it can become an ego thing where it's like I'm really important here at work and I do really cool stuff and I'm really whatever. There's also the exposure and the trauma and then like literally not knowing how to go home. So like let's just not go home. Let's just work more and make that more of
Yeah.
our identity. Um for better or for worse, there's like the fraternal element where it's like we're all family, we're all together all the time. We work these crazy schedules, we see these crazy things, we have this unique
Hmm.
bond. Um, and it can become all encompassing in a lot of ways. So I think that that probably plays a big role. But to be completely honest, I think almost any profession could run the risk of becoming your identity if you're not careful about it. I think some of the extracurricular elements within law enforcement, whether it's, like I said, the fraternization, um, after work hobbies that go into it, like some of that,
Like the drinking? Is that-
uh, sometimes, um, some of that stuff, like I think just makes it a lot worse and makes it a lot
yeah.
harder to detach. Um, but profession in general becomes your identity. Like, and I've experienced it myself, like leaving my job and stuff. It
Hmm.
was a huge identity crisis for me. And this is also a job that you do for a really long time, historically speaking. So
Yeah.
it becomes who you are. You become accustomed to getting attaboys and getting accolades, and so it's difficult. And I think part of it too is, especially when it's at academy level and then admin level, it gets rammed down your throat and in your head that this is who you are, this is what takes priority, this is where you need to be. And so that plays a big role as well. When I do my workshops, I go through like a framework of ways to navigate the job without losing sight of who you are. because that's a big problem is you
Oh,
get
yeah.
to retirement and you have no idea who you are,
Mhm.
or even you quit and you have no idea who you are, or worst case scenario, you lose your job, and then that
Mhm.
is a whole new
Oh, yeah.
atmosphere and situation to handle. Um, and another way that we're setting these people up for failure.
Yeah, and you said some a second ago I hadn't really thought about, which is you're in it for a very long time once you start it, and now that I'm in a different world, people job hop all the time, and I'm like, "How are you leaving?" And they're like, "Oh, man, it's just time to go." I'm like, "Damn." And now I'm like, "Oh, okay." So people really just they don't put anything into a job. It's just this is what I'm doing right now, and then they change it where it's not
Mhm.
something I'm used to. I'm like, "No, you're in it and you're there, and that's where you're gonna retire from." So I hadn't even thought about that perspective. So what if you could tell yourself, because I have a kid and most of us that are listening have kids, I'm sure, because they're around my age group that listens to this. What's something that you maybe would have told yourself as a teen or young child when your dad was a cop to maybe help you better understand it, or what's something that you think is extremely important for kid cops to know at a certain point in their life?
I think in general, more understanding and open communication, especially like you said in today's world. Like when I grew up, I'm sure it was there, but we weren't exposed to it because we didn't have social media.
Hmm.
So when 2020 rolled around, I was totally blindsided. I didn't know that people hated cops like at all. I didn't know that that was a thing. I didn't know that ACAB was a thing. I didn't know what pig meant. Now, like I watch movies about cops and like I understand things that I didn't understand before. Where like I understand references like pig.
Yeah.
Where like before that went right over my head. I think just more conversation, more dialogue. A big thing that I hear is I don't talk about my job, or I my kids don't know what I do, or they know what I do and they don't tell anybody what I do. There's a lot of secrecy, I think, in the profession and in the home as it relates to the profession.
Hmm.
And sometimes it's not secrecy. Sometimes you need to protect them. They obviously can't know all the nitty-gritty details, but I think it's important to have conversations and have dialogues because it's a confusing world to be in as a child. And I remember something as silly as like clocking the gun on my dad's hip, like that was confusing for me as a kid. That was scary for me as a kid because I didn't know why my dad
Yeah.
needed a gun and nobody else's dads needed guns. Like, that was bizarre. And I think if you have these conversations and you explain age appropriate topics, language on topics, like it can answer so many questions that they have or they will have or that they have that they don't know that they have. Like kids are figuring life out.
Hmm.
And then you throw in dad has a gun on his hip, or the kid that sits next to me just told me that my dad is a murderer or a racist or whatever because he's a cop, blanket statement. And it's like these kids have so much going on. And I think just age appropriate conversations can help a lot instead of just assuming that they don't know what's going on or they're not seeing things or lying about the job or being secret about certain elements of the job is protecting them. In some cases, sure, I'm sure it is, but there are also some things that they need to know. There are some things that they need to be prepared for. Another example is the danger of the job. I was talking to a guy who I had on my podcast a few months ago, and he found out when his child was a grown adult, he found out that that grown adult child, as a little child,
Hmm.
found out the risks of his dad's job and became very, very scared and wouldn't
Hmm.
sleep at night. But he was also too scared to tell his dad that he was having these fears and these feelings. So he kept it to himself. And he just kind of like would wait up at night to make sure that his dad came home. And the cop in the situation was like, I didn't even know that my kid knew that my job was dangerous. Like, I thought that I was hiding
Yeah.
that from him, and he found out some other way. And so, best of intentions, but also kind of backfired in a few ways. So I think these open dialogues, and I think the best way to approach open dialogue, when I say open dialogue, is asking them questions to see what they do know, what they are understanding, what they are being exposed to that maybe you're not there for, to learn what's happening kind of in their realm, whether it's they're observing the phone call that you got in the middle of the night that you didn't know they were awake for, or Susie Smith at school was bad mouthing cops. I think starting those conversations, because kids don't know how to start those conversations with their parents a lot of times. They're scared to, they don't want to get in trouble, they don't want to upset their parents. So they'll keep certain things to themselves. But if you start those conversations, then you open the door that they can walk through. And then if they do have questions, they'll be more likely to ask you instead of going online or asking their teacher or whatever, finding the answers somewhere, making the answers up in their own head.
Yeah, I've definitely found that my kid tends to know more than I think that she does, mostly because of school. But that's really all the questions I had, unless there's some glaring mistake and you're like, whoa, why the hell didn't she ask this question? Which I make mistakes all the time. I'm far from perfect.
I don't think so. I'm honored to have the opportunity to chat with you and to sit down with you. And I hope that your listeners kind of get something out of what
Yeah.
I shared. And I think at the end of the day, like, the thing that I want people to understand, and I think I mentioned this, is that you can have it both. You can do both. Like, you can be a great cop who has a great career and also be there for your kids and have a front row seat and a firsthand experience in raising them. And that's how it should be for both of you. They deserve that. They deserve that experience, and you deserve it as their parent, as the one half of who brought them into this world. And I don't want people to sell themselves short because they work in law enforcement. What they do now is what is setting up what comes on the other side of retirement or the other side of when they leave the job. Because as with every job, you are just a number. You are going to be replaced at work, but you will never be replaced at home.
As always, you are free and phenomenal. Thank you for tuning in this week. I've put Katherine's information down in the show notes, her website, her handles, all that other good stuff. Or hopefully I have. If I haven't, I've really screwed the pooch and completely fucked that up. But they should be down there for you guys to easily click around to see if you want to follow her and get some of the good information that she has out there readily available. I do have quite a bit of episodes in the bank right now, but I'm probably still going to do the every other week thing just because it's summertime and you guys are out there busy living your life, living it up. Hopefully not breaking your shit, doing some fun stuff this summer. I get excited about every episode every week, but there's a few of them that I know a lot of you guys are waiting for in particular that you don't know that you're waiting for. So that'll be fun for me. Anyways, you guys have a fucking phenomenal week, and I will see you soon. Or I will talk to you soon. All right, you guys be safe.